welcome. You're watching Global Lens on News 9 Live with me, Neha, Khanna. Our big focus on the show today is on the Pakistan elections. It's a keenly watched election in India's neighborhood, one that New Delhi is keeping a close eye on. Cash-strapped Pakistan voted for a new government today. While on paper it may seem like a democratic exercise, fact is, this was an election that has been questioned by most, both within Pakistan and outside. Some have described it as Pakistan's least credible election yet. Others have termed it a selection as opposed to an election. Why? Because of the usual suspect, the all-powerful Pakistan army that has always meddled in and in fact had a vice-like grip over Pakistan's politics, elections, successive governments and prime ministers in the country's entire 76-year history. As millions headed to the polls today, authorities suspended mobile calls and data services in what seemed like a blanket internet shutdown. The Interior Ministry claimed the measure was warranted, citing recent incidents of terror in the country. At least 4 people were killed in a blast near a polling booth in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province today. Almost 30 people died in twin blasts in the KP and Balochistan provinces on the eve of polling on Wednesday. There was a heavy security presence at polling stations across the country. Border crossings with Afghanistan and Iran were closed as well. Now, even in the past, Pakistan has cut internet services to control the flow of information, but a shutdown of this extent is unprecedented, especially during an election. The internet shutdown was criticized not only by ordinary Pakistanis but also by Pakistan People's Party's Bilawal Bhutto-Zardari, the son of assassinated former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. Bilawal is also running for the top job. Imran Khan's party called the suspension of mobile phone services a severe assault on democracy and a cowardly attempt by those in power to stifle dissent, manipulate the election's outcome and infringe upon the rights of the Pakistani people. The election comes almost 2 years after the previous Prime Minister, cricketer turned politician Imran Khan, was ousted from office in a no-confidence vote. Khan was jailed on corruption charges last year and was barred from contesting this election. 3-time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was on the ballot in today's polls. He returned to Pakistan only last December after 4 years of self-imposed exile abroad to avoid serving prison sentences at home. When asked if he thought the election was free and fair, Nawaz Sharif said it was absolutely fair, adding he never had any problems with the military. He also spoke of the quote-unquote lack of civility, the arrogance and this culture of disrupting and destroying the country in an apparent reference to Pakistan under Imran Khan. Sharif also said he and his family had gone to jail and made sacrifices, and now we are witnessing this day. And if his party wins, people's lives will become easier, inflation will go down. This is what people want, this is their wish and their wishes should come true, he said. 128 million people were registered to cast their votes. Almost half of them are under the age of 35. More than 5,000 candidates, of whom just 313 were women, contested the 266 directly elected seats in the 336-member National Assembly. The Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz or PMLN and the Pakistan People's Party or the PPP are the primary players in this election. Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf or PTI faced massive challenges. Not only was Khan sent to jail, the party was banned from using the iconic cricket bat symbol, which was synonymous with Khan. The move forced PTI-backed candidates who ran as independents to use other symbols instead. Electoral symbols play a key role in a country where more than 40% are unable to read. The PTI alleged that other tactics were also used to prevent their candidates from campaigning, including locking up PTI members and banning them from holding rallies, effectively forcing them underground. Imran Khan is serving at least 14 years in prison after being sentenced in 3 separate cases in the space of just 5 days last week. The PTI has alleged interference by Pakistan's powerful military, with whom Khan fell out before his ouster and imprisonment. Interestingly, while Khan was jailed on corruption charges, Nawaz Sharif was able to contest freely, despite the fact that at the time of the last election, he's the one who was in jail on corruption charges. The former Prime Minister was ousted in a 1999 military coup and had his 3rd term cut short in 2017. But he recently returned from self-imposed exile. He had his lifetime ban on holding office overturned. also got his criminal record wiped clean at the end of last year, allowing him to stand for what would be a record fourth term. Sharif is seen as the front-runner in this election. Many argue that Nawaz Sharif and Imran Khan have switched places since the last election. Khan had the blessings of the army back then, this time it is Sharif. However, pundits say it is likely that no party is able to win a majority, which requires 169 seats in parliament. The deep political divisions make a coalition government seem more likely. If no single party wins a simple majority, the first placed party gets the chance to form a coalition government relying on allies. The deciding factor, as always, is which side the powerful military and its security agencies are on. Imran Khan says the military is behind a crackdown to hound his party out of existence, while analysts say Sharif is being backed by the generals. This election was also held under the long and dark shadow of Pakistan's deteriorating economic crisis, soaring inflation and worsening terrorism troubles, with 2023 recording the highest number of killings of security forces, terrorists and civilians since 2017. So the question is, with the Pakistan army widely accused of influencing yet another election and trying to install one more puppet regime and prime minister, can the new government provide political and economic stability that the crisis-riddled country desperately needs? Will this election change Pakistan's fortunes in any way? Also, with the army exercising near complete control even over the country's foreign policy, can the new government in Islamabad make any significant contribution towards improving the extremely strained India-Pakistan relations?
आज मैं आया हूँ अपना वोट डालने के लिए और मैं पाकिस्तान के अवाम को दरख्वास्त करता हूँ कि निकलो, अपना आपका वोट आपका ताकत है, ज़रूर इस्तेमाल करें और इस मुल्क के मुस्तक़बिल के फ़ैसले उनके हाथ में हैं। जहाँ तक आपका सवाल है मोबाइल सर्विसेज के बारे में, मैं बिल्कुल इसका मज़ामत करता हूँ। मैं मुतालबा करता हूँ इलेक्शन कमीशन से, इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट से, अदालतों से कि मोबाइल सर्विसेज को बहाल किया जाए। ये पूरा मुल्क में वोटर टर्नआउट पे भी असर होगा, आज का पोलिंग डे का कोऑर्डिनेशन पे असर होगा और पोलिंग डे पे टर्नआउट पे असर होगा। और सबसे भरकर जब गिनती हो रहा है, जब आरओज़ के साथ पोलिंग एजेंट्स बैठे हुए होंगे और वो फॉर्म 45 का कोऑर्डिनेशन के वक्त में बहुत से मुश्किलात होंगे। साथ साथ अगर कोई सिक्योरिटी का, वायलेंस का कोई इंसिडेंट होता भी है तो हम वो इंफॉर्मेशन हम तक पहुंचना में ताख़ीर होगा, जिससे अवाम का नुकसान भी हो जाएगा। तो सिक्योरिटी के लिहाज से जमहूरियत के नाम पे बस नॉर्मल फंक्शनैलिटी के हवाले से मोबाइल सर्विसेज को फिलफौर बहाल होना चाहिए। ये एक पाकिस्तान के अवाम का बुनियादी हक है आज कि वो अपना वोट डालें, और इसकी वजह से इसमें बहुत से रुकावटें पैदा होंगी।
All right, so a lot of questions are blowing in the wind. Just what should be made of this election? We have a terrific panel to decode and dissect this election for us. Joining me on Global Lens tonight, Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan; Fakhar Yousafzai, a Pakistani journalist, joining us from Islamabad tonight. And completing the panel is Pramit Pal Chaudhary, head South Asia at the Eurasia Group. Gentlemen, welcome to Global Lens. Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, let me start with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Sir, you understand Pakistan's affairs better than most others. You've been High Commissioner there. You've interestingly made a statement that this is not an election, it is a selection. But would you not agree, sir, that that's how practically every election in Pakistan has been, with the all-powerful military installing one puppet regime and prime minister after another? It's just that the faces and the names keep changing. And ironically, the man who was in jail on corruption allegations the last time Pakistan had an election is now seen as the front runner. And the man who was then the darling of Pakistan's military is now behind bars.
That's quite true. The bar is pretty low in Pakistan on the freeness and fairness of elections historically. In Pakistan in 76 years, most Pakistanis agree that there's been just one free and fair election, perhaps in 1970, and that led to the breakup of the country. So Pakistan's been unfortunate with the elections. And but what marks this as a little distinct in recent history, this recent election or the one we are seeing today, is that the brazenness of the rigging has reached new heights. And this is not just what is happening on election day. So there's been some very heavy pre-election engineering, and that hasn't just started recently. It started perhaps in 2021 when the army and their then puppet of the hybrid regime, Imran Khan, had a falling out. And that led to Imran Khan's ouster in a vote of confidence, again engineered by the army in 2022, as you said in your opener. And since then, there has been a lot of pre-election engineering to end Project Imran and to begin Project Nawaz, which is the new pet project of the army. The irony or the hurdle in this path was that for the army, Project Imran was not easily extinguished. So what we had was a leader, a charismatic leader in Imran Khan with a lot of street power, a lot of backing. And in one of my observations, I called him the X who still stalks Pakistan, the X who refuses to go away. And for the army, that was a first-rate problem. So therefore, there needed to be very heavy engineering before this election. And what we've seen today is some in-election engineering, and what we'll see in the coming days is some post-election engineering, but all aimed at an outcome which the army considers favorable. So I think what is distinct or very different compared to the election I saw when I was in Pakistan in 2018 is that they had a minus Nawaz formula then, that Nawaz Sharif was in jail and they had to work to prop up and bring in Imran Khan. But in this election, it's not just minus one, i.e. minus Imran Khan, it's minus the whole party, the minus PTI, so which had to be broken up into different components. And then, their symbol, the bat, stolen away from them. And then they had to be fighting the election as independents. So it's a pretty much, in this, even by Pakistan standards, it's a heavily engineered election.
By Pakistan standards, it's a heavily engineered election, and it's interesting how you put it that Imran Khan is an ex who refuses to go away. But fact of the matter is that Imran Khan is staring at many years in jail. Before I go across to the others, Ambassador Bisaria, let me ask you this question. Is it now a given, now that Nawaz Sharif is the new darling of the powerful military, that he is going to be the next Prime Minister of Pakistan? And if you do have a scenario where his party fails to get a clear majority, which is what many pundits have forecast, then it is entirely possible that you see once again a formation of the kind that you've seen in the past, the one that ousted Imran Khan from office, with PPP joining hands with PMLN once again, and Bilawal Bhutto once again, finding a place for himself in the new cabinet. How do you see things panning out?
Well, it's hard to say at this point of time, but from the army's point of view, who are managing this drama, a scenario of the kind they saw in the 16-month government led by Shehbaz Sharif is pretty much what they would like to replicate. A weak coalition dependent on the army, so it could be headed by the PMLN and by Nawaz Sharif, but have, in an ideal scenario, the PPP as a junior partner, and with some gives and takes. From early results, it does seem that the PTI independents are doing well, so they will have to be thrown into the mix with some very serious management about which way they're supposed to lean in, and whether they're supposed to form a new coalition which supports Nawaz Sharif in this new coalition that will be stitched up. But this is early days. Let's see how the results pan out. We'll know more tomorrow. But I think the overall scenario certainly is that the PTI has to be in this level playing field, level to the ground, and kept out of the fray. And, the gossip mills of Pakistan are churning. There was a rumor a while ago that Imran Khan was given a deal of Nawaz Sharif type, which means he could exit the scene and keep quiet for 3 years.
Or live abroad in exile?
Or live abroad in exile for 3 years, and that is ominous. What it means is that it keeps the current dispensation, whichever comes into play, on their toes, that if they don't behave well, Imran could be resurrected and the whole cycle could go on again.
And that's how the puppeteer plays this game. Very interesting, Ambassador Bisaria sharing a very interesting input with us, that there are reports, we can't claim that we have any confirmation of this, but there are reports doing the rounds that Imran Khan, who's currently behind bars, may well have been offered a deal and a free get out of jail card. Let me go across to Fakhar Yousafzai at this point. He joins us live from Islamabad. Fakhar, you've heard Ambassador Bisaria. He understands Pakistan politics extremely well, and I'm sure you're fully aware that most around the world today are questioning the credibility of this election. The man who was your prime minister till not too long ago is currently behind bars. He was not even able to contest the election. His party was robbed of their iconic symbol, most believe that the army has pretty much handpicked Nawaz Sharif to be the next puppet prime minister. How do ordinary Pakistanis look at this election? Was there a lot of skepticism that kept people away from the polling booths?
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Neha, actually, this was not the election. I have covered this was the third election which I have covered as a journalist, 13, 18, and right now 2024. But that was very strange for me today at 8 February. And I have asked to so many people, especially in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is my province, in Islamabad capital, where I'm covering this election. And I have asked from the ordinary Pakistanis. They told me this is not an election. This is a selection. We know the result before the election that Mian Nawaz Sharif will be the next Prime Minister of Pakistan. Four times will become a Prime Minister of Pakistan. I think so. This is unfortunate for us. You people are talking regarding the Pakistani election. Ajay Bisaria Saab talk about it, and lots of people, international media is here in Pakistan to cover this election. I think so. Everybody knows about it. Whenever we will go for free and fair election, which Ajay Bisaria Saab said that this 1970 election was free and fair, but after that we have lost our one part of Pakistan on the name of Bangladesh, the East Pakistan. Right now, the situation is not good. Today in Balochistan, in southern Balochistan, the people boycotted this election. And yesterday in two places of Balochistan, Kila Sepula and Pashin, there were two heavy explosions which lost 26 people lives in that. And there are so many things related with this election. And as far as the Imran Khan party is concerned and their candidate are concerned, I think so. This is really unfortunate that the establishment cornered them from the political activities. They have stolen their slogan, their sign of bad, and they were not allowed to free organize their jalsas and their corner meetings and things like that, which is, I think so, everybody knows about that. International media people is here from last 2 or 3 weeks in Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, Peshawar, in Sawat, in different cities of Balochistan, and they're covering each and everything. Of course, the people know about it.
Not to mention the internet shutdown today, which was unprecedented to happen during an election.
Right. Absolutely right, Neha. From 8 a.m. to the 5 p.m. That was the polling time in Pakistan. And at the 8:15, the internet and mobile services suspended in the morning, and the people faced so many problems. Especially, I have visited so many polling stations here in the capital of Pakistan, Islamabad, and the people told me that this is unfortunate and this is unprecedented. That why they are shutting down the internet and mobile services in Pakistan. Why? And right now, we are talking about this issue, but right now there is no service here in the capital city. And in Karachi, I have talked with so many of my friends there. They told me that there is also a shutdown of internet and mobile services. Of course,
Obviously, questions
this
will
is
be
very controversial.
asked. You know, was this an attempt to shroud the election in opacity? We're just grateful, Fakar, that you were able to join us live on this show from Islamabad. You know, given all the problems that people have had to face across Pakistan since the morning, we were not sure you'd be able to join us. I will come back to you in a moment. Let me now go across to Pramit Pal Chaudhary. Pramit Pal Chaudhary, you know, many would argue that Pakistan has never had a free and fair election. The army has always interfered. You know, the puppet master remains the same. The puppets keep changing. It was Imran Khan during the last election. It is Nawaz Sharif this time round. The question is, how do you really see this election impacting the fortunes of Pakistan? It is going through its worst economic crisis. People are grappling with inflation. They, you know, are seeking another IMF bailout. Terrorism is at its peak in that country. Let's say we do see a Nawaz Sharif government being sworn in. Let's say Bilawal Bhutto-Zardari is also a part of that government. How do you think a government like that can take Pakistan out of the current crisis that that country is grappling with? Can such a government provide any kind of stability, political or economic, in that country?
Well, the issue is not stability. That is not what Pakistan needs. What Pakistan needs is a government that can carry out major reforms. In fact, you need a government that is capable of carrying out some sort of rupture of effectively what is now an establishment and a fixed system that is simply not working. In particular, Pakistan's economy needs major structural reforms. Basically, nobody in Pakistan, particularly the rich, do not pay tax. So that means the government is fiscally always stressed. It has lost massive competitiveness over the past three decades. You can see how Bangladesh, for example, has surged ahead of Pakistan in almost every front, including in what Pakistan used to be good at, which is textiles and apparel. There is literally nothing Pakistan does economically now that is really a viable structure. Small businesses in Pakistan have been decimated, partly because of the lack of political reforms. And it has depended on large amounts of foreign handouts in the past from the US, more recently from China, and from Saudi Arabia on a relatively continuous basis. Those foreign creditors are no longer prepared to extend money the way they did. China, for example, has only rolled over debts. It has not extended any new credit for a number of years. America is completely out of the picture now. And even Saudi Arabia gives very limited sums of funding. So Pakistan needs massive economic reforms, but major economic reforms requires a lot of political support, legitimacy, and capital in the government that tries to carry them out. This is probably the most blatantly rigged election, even by Pakistani standards. The degree of military intervention and interference is quite staggering. This means that Sharif will come in. He has a degree of popular support, especially in southern Punjab. He'll probably have to form an alliance with the PPP, and the military will probably ensure that happens. But this coalition government will not be able to carry out major economic reforms. And this will mean that Pakistan's economy will continue to go back and will struggle in a sort of low-level equilibrium, but really unable to handle any of its major problems. and extremely vulnerable to any external shock. If global oil prices skyrocket, if it has the kind of floods or extreme climatic conditions that wrecked its harvest a few years ago, Pakistan's economy will basically continue to fall down.
It will
and
continue to
30%
fall.
inflation is
Yes.
just almost become regular there. It's normalized.
Making life absolutely miserable for the people of Pakistan, and it doesn't look like there is any way out anytime soon. Ambassador Bisaria, I'll give you the last word as we wrap up this discussion. It goes without saying that New Delhi is watching this election very closely. Now, you know, if we assume that Nawaz Sharif is said to be the next prime minister, being propped up by the army, do you believe he will be in a position to in any way take forward the India-Pakistan relationship that has been on ice for such a long time? Of course, he has made several remarks in the recent past suggesting he is keen on improving ties with India. But then, of course, if you look at the party manifesto, they keep linking it to the reversal of the abrogation of Article 370.
Well, I wouldn't read too much into the last sort of conditionality in talks, because I think that is a posture which is sort of the legacy of the Imran Khan regime. This was something that Imran Khan had said then, and politically it's not very savvy for any of the other parties to sort of step back from that position. But I think I would look at 2024 with a degree of cautious optimism. A regime, once it comes in with Nawaz Sharif in the lead and supported and on the same page as the army, would be a more coherent regime that India could deal with. Now, as Pramit said, one of the critical tasks before that regime would be to normalize Pakistan. And that perhaps isn't happening anytime soon, because the senior partner in that relationship is part of the problem. That the army's outsized role in the economy, in the polity, is what has caused Pakistan all these problems. And what they need is deep structural reforms to get out of there. But on the India piece, there are objective conditions that are going to be propitious. For instance, there'll be a new regime in Pakistan and a new regime, perhaps Modi 3.0 in India by the middle of the year. And fresh mandates to civilian governments are always time for a fresh look at this relationship. And I would imagine that a Nawaz Sharif regime would look for a modus vivendi to get into a better space with India. Add to that the fact that we've had a situation where the 2021 ceasefire on the border has held. We haven't had major terrorism, touch wood, since Pulwama 5 years ago. And we've had a definite drop in the numbers of cross-border infiltration and terrorist violence in Kashmir. So the objective factors are in that direction. And if Nawaz Sharif manages to persuade the army, which will continue to be the senior partner from all accounts in the new government, and take forward this relationship, I think some steps are possible. Pakistan will have to make those moves soon as it has a coherent government. And so therefore, I would look at this scenario with some degree of cautious optimism.
Some degree of cautious optimism. Given how hawkish Imran Khan was on India, perhaps many would hope that there will be some degree of positive change with Nawaz Sharif coming in. On that note, Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, Pramit Pal Chaudhary and Fakhar Yousafzai in Islamabad, thank you so much to all three of you for joining me on Global Lens tonight to dissect the Pakistan election. I need to take a quick break here on Global Lens, but don't go anywhere, because on the other side of this short break, we have a very special guest joining us from the United States. Ambassador Hussein Haqqani, former Pakistan ambassador to the US, currently Director South Asia at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C., and clearly one of the foremost authorities on all things Pakistan. Coming back after this short break.
मेक इन इंडिया जैसे है ना, वैसे ही एक मूवमेंट चलना चाहिए, मेड इन इंडिया।
nowadays you're seeing there is a color palette, a theme, and even a whole designer concept to the wedding.
I think the entire headache which the relatives used to take is now gone to the wedding planner.
And India, in terms of diversity, gives you all the options to do your residential weddings within India itself.
The big fat Indian wedding will end up adding to the growth of India's economy.
In our previous episode, we took you around the city where we witnessed the chaos of Bengaluru's roads, the frustration of commuters, and the everyday battle of a Bengalurian.
We are travelling again from KR Market to Whitefield, but this time we are not doing it in a car, but we are doing it in Bangalore's lifeline, the metro.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News 9 Live with me, Neha Khanna, and joining me now is a very special guest, Ambassador Hussein Aani, former Pakistan Ambassador to the United States and Director South Asia at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C., joining us live now. Ambassador Haqqani, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Pleasure being here, Neha.
Thank you, sir. Let me begin by asking you that many have termed this as a sham of an election. There are many who've said, including on this show, that it's not an election but a selection. And then there are those who say that even by Pakistan's own dismal track record, this is perhaps the least credible election the country has ever had. Now, I'm going to quote you. You've written a very insightful piece in the Indian Express here in India, where you've said, look at the country's dismal record. It's never had general elections until 1970. The results of the 10 elections since then have been either disputed by the loser or resulted in governments that were ousted through intrigue. The Pakistan Army sees itself as the ultimate guarantor of Pakistan's unity and survival. But isn't that where the heart of the problem lies? As I said earlier on my show, the puppet master remains the same. The puppets keep changing. It was Imran Khan last time. Very likely it's going to be Nawaz Sharif this time.
Neha, we must understand that the term puppet assumes that the others do not have any agency. Just as there is a long track record of the military asserting itself, there is also a long track record of civilians and the military having a squabble after the civilians have been elected.
So it's not as simple as somebody being a puppet. Yes, the military has preferred candidates, and that is how they have managed Pakistan's politics in more recent years. The era in which, when they got upset, they would take over. That kind of ended in 2008 after the end of General Musharraf's government. This is a better approach for them. Let the people vote. And by and large, people do vote for somebody. They do take somebody's side. It's, in all the elections, the objections have always been to the pre-election environment. The situation is created in which one party has an advantage and the other has a disadvantage. Yet there is some competitiveness, and people become part of that. And it gives some respite to the military from having to manage everything on a day-to-day basis. They do need civilian partners. And it's better to have civilian partners who have some support. Now, the reason why this election is being described in harsher terms than previous ones is because this is the first election with such a strong social media activism. The PTI built a media machinery with the military's help, primarily to what they saw as deal with fifth generation warfare. So they were building a whole machine, training people to essentially fight Ghazwa-e-Hind, perhaps. But now those young boys and girls have turned on the army, and they are sitting on their keyboards, typing away. And that is why this time it looks as if things are worse than before. But let's be honest. What's the difference? 2024, Imran Khan is in prison. 2018, Pakistan Muslim League's candidates, many of them were in detention. Same applies to PTI now. Pakistan Muslim League was denied access to the media. This time the PTI is being denied access to the media. Access to cell phones was denied on election day, partly because it is a security measure, not to allow terrorists to communicate with each other while polling is taking place and, cause bomb blasts at polling stations, but also to impact communication between activists of the political party that is not particularly desirable. So the real strategy still remains one party undesirable, one party desirable. But in the end, these are human beings, not puppets. And therefore, as human beings, they do react to things. Nawaz Sharif had a falling out with the military after having its support in 1990. And then subsequently, in 2013, Imran Khan fell out. Let us see what happens this time around.
All right. Well, in a sense, it is the same script that's playing out all over again. It's just that there seems to have been a role reversal amongst the central characters. The man who used to be the darling of the military, as you said, fell out and is now in jail. He's been locked up, and it looks like the key has been thrown away. His party was even robbed of the iconic symbol, the cricket bat. But let me ask you this. Firstly, do you believe there was a significant amount of sympathy for Imran Khan in this election, regardless of which way the election goes, regardless of what the army prefers? Also, we had former Indian High Commissioner to Islamabad, Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, on the show just a short while ago. He shared an interesting input with us. He said there are rumors doing the rounds that Imran Khan may have already been offered a deal, that you can perhaps get out of jail, but for that you'll have to either just pipe down, keep a low profile for a while, or as Nawaz Sharif did, maybe spend a few years abroad in exile. What do you think of that? Do you believe a scenario like that could in fact emerge in the days ahead?
Ambassador Bisaria probably knows what he's talking about. I am not privy to any talks of a deal, but it wouldn't be surprising. Look, nobody wants to rot in prison. Imran Khan probably overestimated his support. He does have support. He has a lot of support, but there are always scales of support. There are people who will show up and vote for you. There are people who will fight for you. There are people who will go to prison for you. In this particular case, Imran Khan probably got caught up with his own revolutionary rhetoric. The day I am picked up, the country will burn. Well, some of his people tried to burn things The military retaliated much strongly. He thought that he could actually create a division in the army. He couldn't. So he could at some point realize, okay, my attempt of, my plan of getting young people riled up, fighting the state, not just the political opponents, dividing the country, polarizing it. Maybe it's not working at this moment. Maybe I need not to sit in a prison. And so he could look for a deal. Pakistan has had deals in the past. People have gone abroad. He is an older man now. He can always, I mean, people always talk of him as if he's still, a 30-some-year-old cricket player. He's in his 70s. Health is always a good excuse for somebody in that age group. But remember one thing. All other Pakistani politicians were prepared to work within some parameter, some rules. They confronted the military, but they confronted the military within certain confines. Imran Khan has proven himself to be a total rule breaker. That is the reason for his popularity. I must concede that. That is also the reason why he has given certain surprises. But people like that are not easily trusted by entrenched establishments after what he has done. He could have, upon being voted out of the government, crossed the floor and sat as the leader of opposition. That's what happens in any parliamentary democracy. I think the army would have let him do that. He didn't. He decided to spin conspiracy theories. He has no evidence whatsoever that the United States was involved in overthrowing him. A diplomat telling another diplomat that I think so-and-so's government is about to end, and so our bet is better to wait and talk later, is not a conspiracy. Similarly, he has sometimes even invoked my name when he thinks that that's useful to him. So he's been totally reckless in invoking the name of serving generals, trying to use the anti-India card more at a time when the generals even are prepared to consider some kind of sort of positive acts in that direction. Being totally reckless with the economy. I mean, when he realized that he was about to be voted out, he went back on the deal that he had made with the IMF, costing Pakistan a lot in terms of the liability that that came from that. The markets crashed as a result. So here's a man who's reckless. If I was an army general, and you know very well that I am not, and sometimes I don't think I understand their thinking compared to the thinking that somebody like me or another civilian might have. But if I were one of them, I'd be very careful about offering a deal to Imran Khan, because he is not one who will abide by that deal. And so that might be a bigger problem for Imran Khan than being in prison and losing an election. His biggest problem is nobody outside of his support group, which is pretty large. These are people who love him. But other than that, really nobody trusts him. Nobody outside of Pakistan internationally. That's why there has been less hue and cry. Everything has been just what he says. I mean, his statements get reported. He writes an article, a newspaper will publish it. But very frankly, it's not like other Pakistani leaders who have had actual sympathy from outside, and he doesn't have that. And that's unfortunate. Now, I would have sympathy for him for the simple reason that I believe in civilian supremacy, I believe in constitutional rule, I believe in democracy. But then he doesn't make it easy for anybody other than his totally devout followers to show any sympathy or support for him, because he abuses everybody. So he's a populist in the Trump mold. And yes, he has a following, but people like that do run afoul of the law, and people who are negotiating with them don't always trust them.
He is not trusted by anybody, and he did not make things easy even for himself. He adopted a very confrontationalist approach towards everybody, India, the United States, and most definitely the army. And of course, the irony is that Imran Khan had no problem with the military as long as they supported him. You've pointed that out too in your article.
Moreover, he has never behaved like a politician. Politicians basically like to negotiate and talk to others. He has positioned himself as the guy who doesn't compromise. Well, what politician doesn't compromise? So that means he's not a regular politician, and that appeals to some people. I understand it's the unbending guy, but the unbending guy
too much of an outlier for his own good.
Outlier, disruptor, etc., etc. But we have seen that outliers and disruptors. Soon somebody decides to sort of, disrupt them because they are disrupting too much.
They are. He did prove to be a disruptive force in Pakistan.
The business of nations, Neha, needs some stability. It can't be, you can't have the attitude of a fast bowler that, you come, you bowl a ball, you bowl out the guy, fine, you don't, you come and bowl again. You have to have a strategy, you have to have a plan. He didn't have a strategy for running the government. He doesn't have a strategy while he's in opposition.
Okay, that's very well put. A very, very detailed, comprehensive analysis of where Imran Khan went wrong. Let me ask you two questions now, sir. Is it almost a given that Nawaz Sharif is the next Prime Minister of Pakistan? And if that is indeed the case, do you agree with those pundits who are saying that no single party is likely to have a majority? You could once again have Nawaz Sharif's party cobbling together a coalition. Once again, you could have PPP joining hands with them and Bilawal Bhutto finding a place in the cabinet. Could a government of that nature extract Pakistan from the mess that it is in, given the number of crises it is beset with? Please.
There are two questions here. One is about the numbers and the government. Look, I think there will be a coalition government, not just because nobody will have a majority. We don't know. The votes are being counted. Who knows who might end up, what the numbers might be. But the reason why a coalition is necessary is because of the political divisions in Pakistan. The Muslim League is likely to win in Punjab, but it won't get any seats or many seats in Sindh, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So that basically means that if you're going to have a national government, and Pakistan is an uneven federation. One province is much larger than everybody else. They have more seats than everybody else. So theoretically, somebody who sweeps Punjab can exclusively form the government, but that is not the strategy for somebody who wants to keep the country together. So there will be a coalition. Partners will be needed from Sindh, partners will be needed from Balochistan, partners will be needed from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And ideally, from the Muslim League's point of view, from Nawaz Sharif's party's point of view, it would be better to have a broad-based coalition, including the PPP and some of the other regional parties. So that is the reason why there will be a coalition, irrespective of the numbers. Second, will that government be able to take the country out of the mess? Oh, it's a huge mess. Pakistan has to pay $7 billion to the IMF within the next 1 year. It has to, so it will have to borrow to give those. It needs to pay all its various creditors $78 billion in the next 2 years. So whoever comes into office will have to tighten the belt, will have to really be very methodical about finances, introduce new tax policies, renegotiate with the IMF for another loan, probably seek more assistance from China, from Saudi Arabia, from the United Arab Emirates, countries that have helped Pakistan in the past. All of those are going to be difficult decisions. And then they will have Imran Khan and his supporters yapping at their heels, making things difficult, engaging in populism. So all of those difficulties exist. Similarly, peace with India. Nawaz Sharif instinctively has always believed in two things. One is a strong economy, and he thinks that a free market helps Pakistan. He has always done that. He's tried to privatize He has tried to encourage private sector. The second thing he's always done is he wants a modus vivendi with India. Even when he was very Pakistani nationalist and used to talk a lot about Kashmir in the 90s, he still wanted to talk to the Indians, which is much better and which is different to Imran Khan and his rhetoric, which usually is totally meaningless and vacuous. Even when the military said, let's open trade with India, it was Imran Khan who nixed that. So Nawaz Sharif may want to engage again, and I think that Prime Minister Modi too would probably prefer to talk to Nawaz Sharif. And if the army allows that, lets that happen, there might be some room. Now, as far as I know, I've seen the slides your team has put up. Bilawal Bhutto said this and that. A lot of rhetoric is said in both India and Pakistan about each other because, after all, we were one people until 1947. So it's more like a family feud sometimes, and family feuds are always harsher. There are things that you remember that most others, forget. So there are all those factors. But very frankly, I agree with Ambassador Bisaria, who said that a new civilian government does create some opportunities for better India-Pakistan relations.
Well, you're quite right, because as opposed to Imran Khan, who took a particularly hawkish stand vis-a-vis India, and yes, Bilawal Bhutto also didn't quite leave India amused with his very, very scathing comments, especially on Prime Minister Modi, but Nawaz Sharif is one man who has expressed a keenness to take the India-Pakistan relationship forward. You're saying he may well be keen on a improvement of ties, but the question really then is, will the army let him? That remains $1 million question. Also here in India, we're scheduled to have another election very soon, and if pundits are to be believed, it is going to be Modi 3.0. So there is no doubt that Prime Minister Modi, if he does come back with an absolute majority like he did the last 2 times, he will have a bigger mandate than most other prime ministers in the past to take bold decisions vis-a-vis this relationship. How far do you think Nawaz Sharif and the Pakistan army would be willing to go?
Well, I have no idea how far they will go, but the truth is that there will be an opportunity. There was an opportunity immediately after 2014 when Prime Minister Modi was elected and Nawaz Sharif had been elected the year before in Pakistan. That opportunity was squandered. If Pakistan and India both squander this coming opportunity, then we are in for a longer period of cold relations. Now, I know I see people who sort of consider people like me who still dream of positive relations between our two countries and attack us because being a hardliner on Twitter is so much easier than dealing with real life issues. But very frankly, not having a problem in your neighborhood makes life easier for everybody. And I think that India probably and Prime Minister Modi certainly thinks that way. He understands that if he needs to be firm, he can be firm. But at the same time, if you remember, he settled things with Bangladesh. He's been very accommodating with Sri Lanka and Nepal. And there is no reason why he can't do that with Pakistan if the concerns of India, such
Lahore,
as terrorism,
and visited Nawaz Sharif. Who can forget that?
Pardon?
And he made that surprise visit to Lahore when he visited Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif.
And Nawaz Sharif, of course, welcomed him, and it was something that had been arranged between the two. It wasn't like a total surprise; it was a surprise for the media. You see, some of us, when we are in the media, we think things only happen if we have a camera there. The truth is, there's a lot happens behind the scenes as well. So yes, Nawaz Sharif and Prime Minister Modi wanted to move things forward. It didn't happen then. Can it happen now? Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Certainly keep our fingers crossed, because at the end of the day, we are neighbors and we need to do business together. And the relationship, I think, has been in deep freeze for far too long. Final question, sir, before we let you go. Again, in your piece in the Indian Express, you said instead of repeating old cycle of elect, dismiss, disqualify, arrest, the Pakistan army might be willing to put its weight behind elected civilian leadership this time around in what can best be described as Pakistan's Bangladesh formula. I'm guessing many will be skeptical, but if you could briefly explain to our viewers, what this Bangladesh formula is and how you think it can work for Pakistan.
So let me just say that skepticism is a healthy thing, and I'm a skeptic by nature as well. But what happened in Bangladesh? If you remember, their army at one point tried to take over, created a caretaker government. They arrested everybody. They tried to say that we are going to end corruption. It didn't work. So after that, they held an election in 2009. And in that election, Hasina Wajid and the Awami League won. The Bangladesh army decided at that point to let Mrs. Wajid run the government, and the prime minister and the military worked together primarily to stabilize the economy. And Bangladesh's greatest achievement since 2009 has been economic. Having accomplished that, of course, they have also been they have been criticized internationally for being harsh on the opposition, for putting many opponents on trial. Those political opponents of the government who had played a role in the 1971 genocide were put on trial, etc. And all of that basically helped create a situation in which the opposition has been more or less decimated. However, India and even Western countries do not criticize Bangladesh's lack of sufficient attention to human rights and democracy, primarily because the country is functioning, the economy is moving along, and the people are prosperous. So can the Pakistan army think that instead of going the route of Burma, for example, why don't we go the route of Bangladesh and let things be, let the civilian prime minister lead the country towards prosperity and towards good relations with the neighbors? It's just a thought. It's among the many ideas that are out there. But as I have said also, in Pakistan, politics are not always predictable. We could have the repeat of what has happened in the past. We could have this new option, or we could continue to see new patterns evolving as well. For example, Imran Khan brought a new pattern. He was somebody who did not have much support. And then, yet, now he has support when he has been thrown out of power. So all of these things are what I would say twists to the plot. And these occur because in any live performance, sometimes stage actors improvise. And so we'll see how they improvise this time.
Absolutely. Is Nawaz Sharif willing to go off script? We'll have to wait and see. I must say this is a very interesting perspective you have on how Pakistan can get out of its current mess. Let's certainly hope the military is listening to you. On that note, Ambassador Hussein Aani, thank you so much for joining me on Global Lens. It's been a pleasure talking to you, sir.
Pleasure talking to you too, Neha.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, that's all the time we have on this edition of Global Lens. If you have been, thanks so much for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow. We will have the latest updates for you on Pakistan elections. Let's see which way the numbers stack up. But at the moment, it does look like Nawaz Sharif is set to be the next Prime Minister of Pakistan. Good night.
There's a new video around what deepfake can do.
We have seen a trailer of this a few days back.
Roller should not be only on the platform.